Welcome to the JTV Caribbean News. I am Sean Rose. A recent announcement by telecommunications company Flow of a hike in the cost of broadband services is not sitting well with St. Lucia's Telecommunications Minister, Dr. James Fletcher. Dr. Fletcher says he is very concerned about Flow's statement of intent to raise prices, describing the move as a backward step. More in this HTS News Force report.
Flow's price hike announcement came via text and for some by email and left customers livid. According to Dr. James Fletcher, all over the world, people are increasing access to broadband services. He's concerned that Flow is moving in the opposite direction with this move.
My position on this, I've always said that broadband really is the most important thing for us. It is what will encourage commerce, what will allow people to get more educated, improve networks. So this decision by Flow, I think, is a very backward one. It's certainly not one that the government of St. Lucia supports.
Dr. Fletcher says he intends to take up the issue at this week's ECTEL Council of Ministers meeting. He says the price hike also goes against guarantees made by Lime CEO Phil Bentley to telecoms ministers.
He gave us his assurance that the merger of Lime and Flow would not result in any increase in rates, and that he sought to allay our fears that this would create a monopoly and that the consumers would be the ones to be left holding the short end of the stick. And what Flow has done now is confirming our worst fears. So I'm extremely unhappy with the decision by Flow. And after I've met with my fellow Council of Ministers, I will be returning to St. Lucia and probably issuing another statement, writing officially to Flow, but also seeing what means we have as a government, both legally and morally, to encourage Flow to reverse what I believe is an extremely backward, extremely retrogressive decision.
The telecommunications minister is not alone in his dismay. Over in Grenada, nationals have launched a No to Flow Grenada Internet Price Increase petition. The country's National Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, the NTRC, said last week that Flow's decision is not in keeping with the existing legislation. The price increases per internet package range from $7 to $20 on monthly bills. Alison Kentish, HTS News Force.
4 executive members of the Teachers Union in St. Vincent and the Grenadines were among the 60% of educators who turned out to classes on Tuesday when the union staged a one-day strike to try to pressure the St. Vincent and the Grenadines government into paying 1 month's salary tax-free in lieu of salary increases since 2011. Although activities in the nation's education sector went on go-slow for the entire day, Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves said he was pleased that the majority of teachers and students had not heeded the union's call. SVGTU President Oswald Robinson said a preliminary count showed that 40% of the teachers were off the job. The SVGTU and the Public Service Union called the strike as part of their efforts to get the government to make the payment before general elections expected before the end of 2015. The call continues for Britain and other European countries to make a formal apology and compensation for slavery. UK Prime Minister David Cameron visited Jamaica recently and spoke of the abhorrence of slavery, but made no mention of reparations. More in this report.
Quite a controversial as well as a sensitive issue, but it's a fight the region is prepared to take on. The issue of reparations. The Caribbean stands unified in its position that Britain and other European countries must compensate them for the ills of native genocide and slavery. So it was no surprise that an overwhelming majority of Jamaicans wanted United Kingdom Prime Minister David Cameron to discuss the issue when he visited Jamaica. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller told the media that the issue came up during their bilateral talks at Jamaica House on Tuesday. However, British Prime Minister David Cameron would speak on the issue publicly as he addressed a joint sitting of Parliament on Wednesday. He didn't offer a formal apology, nor did he mention any form of compensation for the atrocities of slavery. However, the UK leader admits the treatment meted out to our African ancestors was abhorrent.
Slavery was and is abhorrent in all its forms. It has no place It has no place whatsoever in any civilized society, and Britain is proud to have eventually led the way in its abolition. That the Caribbean has emerged from the long dark shadow that it cast is testament to the resilience and spirit of its people. I acknowledge that these wounds run very deep indeed, but I do hope that as friends who have gone through so much together since those darkest of times, we can move on from this painful legacy and continue to build for the future.
On the outside of Parliament, a small group of protesters also appealed for reparations. Opposition leader Andrew Holness also made a similar case.
We appreciate the view expressed that our relationship should be forward-looking. Nevertheless, we also believe that there must be genuine commitment to finding ways of repairing what is universally agreed to be the wrongs of the past.
But Mr. Cameron argues that while the scars of slavery are painful, he hopes the two countries' cordial ties are enough to pilot the way forward. Tanika Thomas reporting for Scene Caribbean News.
And finally, in this week's Caribbean News segment, Carnival Corporation has expanded its operations in Mexico with the launch of a third berth at its pier at Puerto Maya, the Caribbean region's busiest cruise port, with an average of 3.3 million cruise guests each year. The company says that the extra capacity will allow even more ships to call on Cozumel. Last year, about 1.5 million Carnival guests visited Puerto Maya on 25 ships from 8 different home ports, according to company data. The new berth had been in the planning stages dating back to 2005, with work finally beginning in May 2014. Puerto Maya is one of 3 cruise terminals in Cozumel. That's it for this week's Caribbean News segment. I am Sean Rose.
And coming up next on JTV News. A great Christmas is ahead for BVI cruise sector as the Tortola Pier Park gears up for grand opening in December. Domestic violence campaign appeals to the public to effect change, and officials are bringing healthy relationship message to primary school.